Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We've got some of an opening weekend this past weekend. Most of Sunday got rained out, and even a couple teams didn't get to play on Saturday as well. But we did get some Bears baseball this weekend, and I could not be more excited to talk about all of the action. Listen, the offseason BBNs are fun. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, we get excited about a lot of players in the offseason, but this is what BBN is all about, talking about the action on the field. So I want to go ahead and first give me your one biggest takeaway from the weekend because, again, in the baseball we did see, there are a lot of things that in the offseason I kind of thought were going to happen, and then I saw it, and then there were some things that caught me by surprise. But I'll go first. For me, my one big takeaway was that the teams who really need to improve their pitching staffs sure look like they have. 12U Floyd and even 10U Nickerson are two teams that could really have used some improvements in their pitching staff, and we definitely saw that this weekend. It was an absolute dominant performance. If you look at the precision pitchers from 13U Burnstill, 12U Floyd, and 10U Nickerson, the precision pitching students combined for 40 strikeouts to 13 walks. If you had your ace had 40 strikeouts to 13 walks, that would be super impressive. You'd be happy with that. For every single precision pitching guy to have a 40 to 13 line was very, very impressive. It looks like this is going to be one of the best years ever for pitching in the Bears. So for me, that was my big takeaway. Bernie, how about you? I know you got to see, obviously, a lot of baseball from all the teams this weekend. What was your biggest takeaway from opening weekend?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is that 12U Floyd is going to be a really good team this year. I don't see any reason why this team should not win between 45, even 50 games. There's not a bad player on this team. A couple guys have really stepped up. Like you said, that pitching staff's much improved. I think Lucas Closer is going to blossom as a superstar. Wheaton Hainline, kind of role players, having good weeks. Again, there's not a bad player on this team. This team should be a 45 to 50 win team.
Yeah, this weekend, 22 strikeouts to 6 walks. The pitching staff did not have a weekend anywhere near that good last year. And the defense was a big weakness for this team. Looks much improved, especially in the outfield. KJ, I know your games got rained out all weekend long. You didn't get to see any of your team play, but I know you were out at Fenton on Saturday. I know you're watching Game Changer for all the teams you didn't get to see play. What was your big takeaway from the weekend?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway, we talked a lot about, Rudy and Harrison this winter for 13U Burnstill. I think it was kind of a big takeaway how deep they are. I think they're deeper than we expected. Chase Sutherland was coming out. He got a lot of big hits. Not a guy we've really talked about much. Connor Kennedy, Braden Young, and these are all guys at the bottom half of the order. So we spent a lot of time talking about, how great of a BWL Kinney had, how good Rudy, Harrison, Alex Vo. But I think I was at least a little shocked how deep this team is.
Yeah, very, very impressed by, we talked about before, this was a basically one-man roster 2 years ago. It was Harrison Blabaum and everybody else around him. And then it became a two-man roster and a three-man roster. Now it looks like this is a top team from the top to the bottom. Very, very impressive. If you're new to the Bears Baseball Network, we do a segment called Hackin' Time during the regular season where every single double, triple, and home run that you send in will get put into a hitting montage. If you want to be a part of Hackin' Time, send your doubles, triples, or home runs into bearsbaseballnetwork@gmail.com. Obviously, with the rain this weekend, didn't get enough clips for a full Hackin' Time, but in the future, if you want to be a part of Hackin' Time, send your clips, doubles, triples, or home runs into bearsbaseballnetwork@gmail.com. Now, we didn't get enough clips for a full Hackin' Time, but we did get some highlights from the weekend, and the first one I want to show is the big standout moment from the weekend. It was 12U Floyd, their game Sunday. They went into the last inning trailing. Hamilton Case comes up, gets a base hit that ties the game, and then Carson Griffith came up. The infield was drawn in with the winning run on third base, and Carson Griffith gets the walk-off. Let's go ahead and go into our big moment of the weekend. So a huge moment there for 12U Floyd, and this team, like you said, very much improved. They led in all 3 games this weekend, but what I was really happy about, on Saturday, they were leading against a good team and ended up throwing the lead away. They were up, they fell behind, and then just felt like they were defeated. They couldn't get back in the game. On Sunday, again, got ahead early in the game, kind of lost the lead. They let the other team get back, but they bounced back, ended up getting the walk-off. So very, very proud of that 12U Floyd team for that. Our first home run of the 2025 season was Lucas Closter. Unfortunately, did not get that one on video, but Lucas Closter, a big name in the offseason. KJ, I know he was a guy that you really liked a lot. He was a dark horse MVP pick. This guy, first home run of the season. What are your thoughts about Lucas Closter, KJ? I know you got to see some of his at-bats on Saturday. You got to see his stats from the weekend. Do you think this is kind of the start of a breakout year for Lucas Closter? What do you think about him hitting the first home run of 2025?
Yeah, I think Lucas is kind of going through his Bears hitting progression. I thought last year he was a guy who would put the ball in play a lot, and then I think in the first couple weeks of BWL, he was a guy who was swinging for the fences and swinging and missing a lot, pulling his head out. And then I think the last 5 weeks of BWL, he was swinging very hard and making loud contact, and I think that kind of carried into this weekend. So I think that's going to be the new norm for Lucas Closter.
You know, Bernie, Lucas Closter certainly not a surprise to us. You know, we've been watching this guy day in and day out. We know he's going to have a big season. One guy who might have been a little bit surprising was Whedon Hainline. This guy, not only was he good on the mound, which I would say that's pretty expected. We expect Whedon Hainline to be a big-time pitcher. He played great defense and was an impact player at the plate. He had 3 doubles this weekend, Bernie. He led the 12U Floyd team in OPS. Bernie, what do you think about Whedon Hainline? Is this just a kind of spark in the pan? Is this just one big week? Or do you think this is the start of a new version of Whedon Hainline?
I didn't see Whedon hit, a ton, like in the cage over the course of winter practice and stuff. But obviously I saw the at-bats on Saturday. I was there for him, a couple of his hits, his double. And then I watched him again at practice this Wednesday in the cage. And this kid is much stronger than he was last winter. He worked his butt off all offseason, got a lot stronger. And now if you watch him in the cage, he looks like he belongs with all the top team guys, the Lucas Closters, the Humes, Owen Haynes, all those guys. He looks like he belongs now, and I think so. He is here to stay with them.
Yeah, and KJ, we talk about his pitching. That was probably the most secure part of his game. That was the spot that we were most confident in. But even he has made some big pitching strides over the offseason. He didn't really have much of an off-speed arsenal last year. He's added a couple miles an hour. What have you seen from Whedon's pitching that could see him maybe not just be a strike thrower, a guy who's going to be safe, but could potentially move into that ace conversation? What do you see in Whedon's pitching?
Yeah, Whedon's, it's not very often you find a 12U pitcher who can throw 2 pitches for strikes, and Whedon can do that very consistently. Yeah, but with Whedon, I think his bread and butter is going to be, his curveball being a strike. I don't think he necessarily has a fastball that overpowers, but we talk about it a lot. When you're throwing curveballs for strikes, it makes your fastball much better, and I think Whedon's going to have, obviously he's going to throw strikes again. I think he's going to have a big uptake in strikeouts because he's going to have that curveball throwing it more, 50% of the time even more, and that fastball is going to look even better.
Bernie, so far we've talked a lot about this 12U Floyd team. I think there were a lot of eyes on them this weekend after an offseason that's been very, very important to them. But let's go ahead and talk about the cream of the crop in our youth program. Certainly the team of our youth, and that's 13U Burnsville. I mean, this team absolutely dominant. Come in and win over 40. You can give me the exact number, Bernie, but I believe it's something like 44-1 or something like that. It was absolutely dominant. Come in, take care of business. Like Kennedy said earlier, line up from top to bottom, no problem. I know every pitcher went an inning this weekend. Didn't really matter who you put up there. Everybody was great. Bernie, this Burnsville team, I know, not surprising me. I know they're not surprising you, but what did you see out of this first weekend? A dominant one on Saturday for 13U Burnsville.
Yeah, like you said, the score was 43-1 if you want to be exact about it. But I thought the boys came out and took care of business this weekend. I know KJ's already talked about the hitters, how deep we got there. Like you said, we had 6 different guys take the mound this weekend and only allowed 1 run in 2 games. Right? I think that's really important for this team. This team has had that before. Usually it's the top rotation. It's Owen, Luce, and Harrison eating innings and everybody else. Whereas I think now we're at least 5-6 guys deep. I'm confident any of those guys going up there.
Yeah, this Burnsville team was right on the precipice of 60 wins last year. It was very easily attainable for them. I think this year 60 wins is the expectation. I think this team's going to be pushing 70. KJ, when you look at this roster from top to bottom, you just see guys that are already established stars, and then you see some guys who are KJ, besides the already established stars that we know are superstars, who really surprised you from this weekend of guys you think could take that next step to kind of push this Burnsville team toward that 70-win mark?
I'll tell you, a guy who really surprised me was Chase Sutherland. He's a guy we didn't really talk about all winter, but he hit multiple balls very hard. I know that he's not a guy who's necessarily going to be a full-time starter in that lineup, but he definitely made a good case to be at least thought about starting from here on out.
Yeah, and there was a lot of guys that we talked about over the offseason that we expected to have big weekends. But I want to go ahead and talk about some of the guys who maybe surprised us this weekend. Maybe guys who we wish we would have talked about more. So I'm going to go through and let's give one guy that you wish you would have talked about more that kind of proved this weekend that they should be. I'll go first. I'm going to go with Knox Kennedy. This is a guy who I've kind of really liked, but in silence. I didn't want to be wrong about it. I like Knox Kennedy, but I felt like, if I was really hyping him up and he didn't play like I thought he would, I was going to look silly. But I'll tell you what, after this weekend, I don't even know if he got very many hits this weekend. I know he had at least one hard hit single. I don't know if he did that much damage, but just watching him swing, he was this close to 2 or 3 home runs this weekend. I mean, hard foul balls that are fouled straight back, balls that are crushed but just not hit high enough to be home runs. I am all in on Knox Kennedy. I think he's going to hit multiple home runs this year, and I think this guy's going to be a huge star for that 12U Floyd team. Bernie, for you, who's one guy you wish you would have talked about more in the offseason?
Yeah, I'll go to the guy who played 13U Burn this weekend, J.R. Welty. This guy played in BWL, and I think we all saw him. He had a couple big hits off a couple good guys. I know he hit a home run off Owen Lewis in BWL. But I don't know if I was all the way there with JR yet. But he comes out and Burn, absolutely smokes 2 or 3 baseballs this weekend. And it was one of those guys, man, that I thought would be a really good hitter for the Burn squad. But now I think, man, he's going to be a big contributor to the top team the rest of the way.
JR is a guy who I think is really starting to get into that class of player that could just be a superstar. I think when you look at guys like Braden Young, guys like even, from a different age, a guy like Quentin Choate, these are guys who we know will be superstars. It's just when. And I think JR is definitely a little bit on a faster track than maybe I thought initially, but he's been very, very impressive so far. KJ, how about for you? Who's one guy you wish you would have talked about more in the offseason?
Yeah, that guy for me was Liam Murphy. I think, we kind of knew Liam was a good defender, and not only did he play good defense, but he's been working really hard on pitching over this winter, and he pitched really well, threw a lot of strikes. He's starting to get to a point where, we talked about with Whedon, he can throw 2 pitches for strikes, and he did way more damage with the bat than I kind of anticipated. I know he's batting at a key spot on that 13U Burn team, and he had a ton of balls hard. I know he had at least 1 extra base hit, but yeah, Liam kind of doing it from all facets of the game, playing good defense, pitching, and hitting.
Yeah, that's another guy where work ethic has never been a concern for Liam Murphy. It's just how quick is he going to develop in that top player. Certainly took a great step this weekend. I talked earlier about my biggest takeaway from this weekend being the pitching. I talked about it kind of as a whole, but let's go ahead and look at some of the specific outings from this weekend, some pitching standouts. First up, Owen Haynes. 4 innings, 11 strikeouts, just 1 walk. He was absolutely dominant on Saturday. Whedon Hainline, a shutout, 3 strikeouts, no walks, and a 3-inning shutout for Whedon Hainline. Cooper Woolen, 4 1/3 on the Sunday. You got first ball on Sunday. 4 1/3, 7 strikeouts, just 3 walks. And Christian Closter for Nickerson, 4 1/3, 7 strikeouts, just 1 walk. Some very, very impressive standouts. Bernie, for you, when you hear those 4 pitching lines, which one to you is the most impressive of those 4?
Yeah, I'll go with the guy right up all the K's and Owen Haynes. I said on the award prediction show that I thought my dark horse was Owen Haynes because if he could do this, put up these kind of strikeout numbers every week, we know this guy's going to throw strikes, and this 12-14 team is going to be so much improved that I think he's going to make his case for Cy Young.
Yeah, plus 10, 11 strikeouts to 1 walk, just absolutely dominant. He's got a slider now that he didn't have last year, and he racked up, I believe, 6 of his strikeouts came on that slider, so very, very impressive. KJ, these other 3, Whedon Hainline, Cooper Woolen, Christian Closter, I think we all expected Owen Haynes to have a big pitching season. Which of these 3 pitching outings was maybe the most surprising to you, and what do you see about that guy going forward?
Yeah, I've been working with Cooper pretty much all winter, and I think just recently we started to kind of get his curveball where we want it to be. And I didn't know if it was necessarily game ready yet, but obviously it looked pretty good. It was 7 strikeouts in 4 innings. So, he's taking big steps up all winter. I know his velo has climbed up a lot, and just recently his curveball is starting to get to a point where, he can throw it a lot and trust to be a strike.
Yeah, so Owen Haynes comes up with a new pitch, gets 6 strikeouts on it. Cooper Woolen comes up with a new pitch, didn't have a curveball last year, has a curveball now, and 5 of his 7 strikeouts came on the curveball. So, guys, learning new pitches and executing them in the game, and that has been all the difference. So, very excited. Hopefully, we get to play this weekend. Know there's some rain in the forecast, but hopefully we'll get to play this weekend. If not, we will go ahead and take the field next weekend, but be sure to send any doubles, triples, or home runs into BearsBaseballNetwork@gmail.com. Eventually, we will have a hack time, so be sure to send in your clips. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to y'all next week.